I've talked a little bit about habits in some of my other videos, and today I wanted to go into a little bit more detail on that with the help of James Clear, who is the author of Atomic Habits, and he has a great newsletter that I highly recommend subscribing to. I'll link both of those in the description below. A great quote here to start off with is, "Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement." So the premise of Atomic Habits is that if we make small changes in our lives toward behaviors that we want to pursue, that long term, those small changes can add up to a huge change in our lives. Day to day, you might not see a huge amount of difference if you're exercising or eating right, but over the course of a year or two, you're going to see major differences between a good diet and bad diet. Over the long term, those little differences in your exercise or eating habits are going to have a big impact on your quality of life. So James Clear argues that the main difference between successful and unsuccessful people is not the goals that they have. Typically, unsuccessful people have the same goals as successful people. The difference is that successful people build systems that they can follow long term that help them to achieve those goals, instead of just having a goal in mind. It's the system that matters more than the goal or the desired outcome. He also argues that goal achievement is temporary. Typically, when we achieve a goal, we just set a new one. It doesn't give us long-term satisfaction or happiness to achieve our goals. What does give us long-term happiness and satisfaction is having measurable progress on a system that we've developed to improve over time. One big inhibitor of good habit formation or behavior change is our own identity or sense of ourselves. James Clear argues that a lot of us have a desired outcome in mind, and that we might not consider how our perceived identity or perception of ourselves can impact our progress towards that outcome. Instead, he recommends that you should strive for the opposite. Cultivate an identity or a self-perception that helps you to reach those outcomes. Instead of thinking, I want to lose weight, think, I'm a healthy person, therefore I will exercise and eat healthy. Now, I understand that that might not seem totally obvious when you're just starting out with an activity. So I actually think of this a little bit differently, where in my life I want to remove any identity blockers. For instance, the idea that I am not artistically talented, or I am not a musical person, or I'm just not good at such and such activity. By removing that mental barrier and eliminating the identity blockage, I'm able to pursue activities more freely without thinking that they're not for me. These can be very subtle, subconscious things that you might not be thinking about on a day-to-day basis. You might not think necessarily that you can't do something, but you might still have the idea that a certain activity is just for other people or for a different demographic. If you want to feel free to pursue any activity, you have to abandon that sense of identity and what certain people are and aren't allowed to do, so you can open your mind to the possibility of being able to do any activity that you want. So for me, this was music. I thought of myself as just not a musically inclined person. Once I abandoned that and I learned how the mind actually works and how I could learn this without being what I thought of as a musically inclined person, I was able to freely pursue music, and now it's something that I really enjoy because I dropped that identity blocker that I had for myself. Ultimately, James Clear recommends cultivating an identity that's supportive of the activities that you want to do or the behaviors that you want in your life. By building an identity that's supportive of the things that you want to do, that creates a long-term sustainable pattern of behavior. Habits or behaviors that you can associate with your personal identity are going to be much easier to maintain rather than just habits that are intended to reach a goal. James Clear highlights 4 factors to building a habit: cue, craving, response, and reward. And he breaks those down into the 4 laws of behavior change. For cue, you need to make the behavior obvious. Think of how your phone prompts you to do certain activities, like when you receive a message that you want to check. If you create an environment where you're constantly reminded of the behaviors that you want to pursue, you're going to be much more likely to pursue those things. This could be an actual alarm that goes off that tells you to do something, or it could simply be just leaving something out in plain view so that you walk past it every day and you see and are reminded to do that thing. Another piece that he highlights is implementation intentions. So instead of saying, I'm going to exercise, instead set a specific date and schedule when you are going to exercise. That will keep you committed to it yourself. So if instead of saying, I'm going to exercise eventually, you have the idea, I am going to exercise Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 p.m. each day starting this Monday. That gives you a lot more accountability and makes it a lot more likely that you're actually going to follow through on that. For craving, you need to make it attractive. You need the activity to be appealing to do. If the activity isn't appealing in itself, you can use what James Clear calls temptation bundling. This is where you associate the desired behavior that you want to cultivate with something that you already enjoy doing. For instance, this could be saving your favorite music to listen to while you're at the gym working out. Then over time, you're going to anticipate going to the gym because you get to listen to your favorite music, as opposed to going to the gym just to do the workout that you might not want to do. But by temptation bundling, your mind will soon associate the two activities, and you might start to just enjoy going to the gym for its own sake. This could also be something that's not actually during the activity itself. This could be by promising yourself a reward afterward. Say you allow yourself 30 minutes of TV if you complete your entire workout. Then your mind will start to associate that desired reward with the activity that you're trying to cultivate. You have to make it easy, and the best way of thinking about this is the activation energy that's required to start an activity. So if you think about it as something like practicing an instrument, if you put that away in the closet, it's going to be a lot harder for you to go and take it out and start the activity than if you were to just leave the instrument out all the time. If you leave your instrument out, you get the added bonus of having the cue there that you're responding to, and then the activation energy will be very low. You just go and pick it up and start playing. This is also known as reducing the friction for the activity. You always want to be reducing the friction or the activation energy required to do activities that you want to do or behaviors that you want to cultivate, and you want to increase the friction or activation energy required for undesired behaviors, like smoking or watching too much TV. So if you're trying to eat healthier, for instance, you could make it a lot easier to access the healthier things in your house or prepare meals ahead of time so you always have something healthy that you can go and grab when you want a snack that might otherwise be something less healthy. You could also just make it harder to reach the snacks, or you could just not buy them altogether. I actually just experienced this myself the other day when I went to eat an orange as a healthy snack. The orange was still in a closed bag, however, and that alone was too much activation energy for me. I looked at the bag and I just said, nah, and I moved on. Even things that small can create enough of an activation energy barrier to discourage us from doing the activity. So if you're trying to discourage a behavior, it doesn't take much to do that. For watching TV, for instance, you could unplug the TV and remove the batteries from the remote, and it'll be a lot harder to initiate that undesired behavior. By increasing or decreasing the friction in our environments, we can create an environment that cultivates the behaviors that we want to have. And lastly, you should reward yourself. That reward will serve as positive reinforcement for your mind and make you more eager to do the activity in the future. As James Clear says, what is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. It's as simple as that. Our brains respond to positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement, and they do the activities that make us happy. You can create an environment or conditions that make desired behaviors in your life appealing to you. More simply, I think this can be boiled down to any behavior that you want to do, make it easy and make it fun. And that will make it a lot easier to cultivate a habit doing that activity. So to summarize, you want to build systems to create habits and behaviors that can be maintained long-term in your life. Create habits of behavior that will compound into long-term positive outcomes. Cultivate an identity that allows you to explore anything you want to do. Eliminate any self-limiting self-perceptions that you have, like, I'm not artistic. Leverage the 4 laws of behavior change. Use cues and make it obvious. Create an environment where you're reminded to do the desired activity. Make the desired behavior more attractive by pairing it with other behaviors which you enjoy, like listening to your favorite music. Make it easy by reducing activation energy required, like leaving your guitar out so it's easy to reach. And lastly, reward yourself for instant positive feedback to keep you returning to that activity. If you've enjoyed this video and you want to reward yourself by subscribing, feel free to do that.